I'm probably the last film vlogger on YouTube who's actually seen Solo, a Star Wars story. Normally I'm the first person in line to see a Star Wars film, but for some reason I was just lacking the drive to see this one. And apparently I wasn't the only person, because apparently Disney were really let down with its takings for its opening weekend. Apparently they were aiming for 130 million, but only made 103. Ooh, I guess Star Wars fatigue is a thing now. Oh well. Hey guys, so today's film up for discussion is Solo, a Star Wars story. As I'm sure probably you're already aware, this film went through a terrible production. Kathleen Kennedy actually had to fire co-directors Phil Lord and Christopher Miller when she saw early footage of the film and deemed that the actual footage wasn't in correct tone of the Star Wars lore. Apparently they made it too funny or something. So yeah, she fired them, and then they brought in Ron Howard to try and salvage it, and for the most, he has done a pretty competent job here. But is it anything special? Not really. Here's the thing, guys. When I expect a film to be average or bad, I go in with low expectations. That way, I get occasionally surprised with a certain film like Game Night, or even, ironically, Lord and Miller's previous film, 21 Jump Street, okay? I went into those films with low expectations and ended up being pleasantly surprised. So if you set the bar low, then you won't be disappointed. So here's the thing. When I heard so much about this film's production problems, I actually went into this with low expectations, thinking it might surprise me. But yeah, I went into it with low expectations, and sadly, I was still a little bit disappointed. Maybe it's because subconsciously, I always sort of judge Star Wars to a higher standard, because it's such a well-renowned franchise. But this really is a mixed bag of a film, and I'm thinking it might be a case of too many chefs in the kitchen, because the end result is a little bit muddled. So first of all, the opening of this film is a bit rocky, okay? The first 20 minutes or so of the film are a bit of a mess, both in terms of tone, style, and sort of having any sense of engagement, really. We're introduced to the younger version of the scruffy-looking nerf herder, Han Solo, who's played by Alden Ehrenreich, and the first act sort of introduces us as to how he becomes a pilot after he escapes the clutches of this alien creature called Lady Proxima, and sadly he and his love interest, Kiara, who's played by Emilia Clarke, are separated, and that sort of becomes the setup for the story that he's gonna return back to this place and save Kiara. But yeah, the film then decides later, we're going to take a different route with that. We're going to give Kiara her own subplot. And yeah, they eventually meet up later in the film. But yeah, it kind of feels like a false setup to the story, which feels like the script wasn't very well developed. So yeah, that's the first problem I spotted watching this. And also some of the lighting choices in the opening act I thought were a little bit jarring, particularly in Lady Proxima's lair. There was a lot of black and blue, and it just felt very discordant to me. And also, everybody that's going into this film already knows that Han Solo is a renowned smuggler, okay? He's supposed to be like a space pirate, okay? There's a lot of fun to be had with that. And this opening scene where he sort of escapes in this pod and they have this little chase scene, there's a lot of muted, dim colors that Ron Howard's gone for, and I don't know, it just doesn't really capture the essence of sort of a freewheeling scoundrel like Han Solo. It just feels a bit grim, and I feel if they changed the palette to something a little more colorful, it could have reflected Han Solo's character a little bit better, okay? The juxtaposition of his character traits and what's happening on the screen doesn't quite mesh together. I did enjoy the origin story of how Han met Chewbacca, and as soon as those two get together and they're on their first mission, it actually feels like the film, takes flight. Bit of a cheesy pun there, wasn't it? Plus the introduction of the younger version of Lando Calrissian, played by Donald Glover, as well as the droid L337, who's played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, definitely livened up the tone and made it more fun and pleasant. Donald Glover, as we were expecting him to be, was absolutely perfect as Lando Calrissian, and yeah, just oozes charisma and devilish charm, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge just brings more life to this droid L3 than a lot of other, human characters in the Star Wars saga, like Lieutenant Hux or even Captain Phasma, okay? I felt way more of a human connection to her than those characters from, The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi. And yeah, I won't lie, my favourite scene in this film was probably one you're not going to expect. And it's just this lovely little fleeting exchange between L3 and Kira. And they have this little girl talk in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. And they just talk about their affections for their male counterparts. And it's just weirdly adorable. It's a little bit silly, but it's sweet and it's sincere, and I completely bought it. Star Wars should do more girl talk scenes. Star Wars is definitely not just for boys, okay? It's for girls too. But you guys are probably wondering, how does Alden Ehrenreich do stepping into the shoes of Han Solo, especially after there were these rumors that he had an acting coach on set to help him get into the role? That's always a little bit troubling when you hear rumors like that. But I will say this, I actually thought Ehrenreich did a pretty serviceable job. I like that he didn't go for a copy and paste performance of Harrison Ford's legendary interpretation. I like that he sort of brought a little bit of youthful optimism to the role as well, which does feel quite fitting when you think about the journey of Han Solo. He's going to get to more adventures and cross paths with people that will probably betray him and stuff. So yeah, it makes sense that, you know, he starts off quite sweet and optimistic and yeah, becomes a bit more, you know, disgruntled, you know, in the Harrison Ford outings. And there were definitely moments where Ehrenreich just absolutely nails the mannerisms and the body language and the facial cues. Like, he does capture that sort of coy little half smile thing, you know, that Han Solo was famous for, you know, so leaning on a doorway, you know, the little cheeky grin. I'm probably looking proper creepy right now. I don't think I can do Han Solo as good as Alden Ehrenreich or Harrison Ford. But yeah, why wasn't I cast, Hollywood? Eh? Think about it. But does he make the role his own? Nah, but to be honest, that's a justifiable trepidation that comes when you're playing a character in a prequel to something already, which, you know, the previous actor made the role so iconic. So yeah, if you're playing the same character, you know, in a prequel, it's not a reimagining, is it? So that leaves an actor very little room to sort of stretch and breathe and create something different. I'm sure there were another 50 actors working in Hollywood that could have pulled it off just as good, if not better. And I guess my biggest gripe with this film is that it doesn't really do anything to justify its existence. Most of what we wanted to know about Han's backstory, we already got in A New Hope, okay? He's a smuggler, he's a very good pilot, and yeah, even though he acts with selfish motivations, he often comes through as a reluctant hero. Whereas this film feels like it's merely existing just to answer a few questions that nobody was really asking, like, where did Han Solo get his famous iconic blaster gun from? How did he get his last name, Solo? How did he and Chewbacca meet? Which I will admit I did enjoy watching, I'm not gonna lie. But you know how Rogue One was essentially a movie that only existed just to sort of cover up the plot hole of the Death Star design in A New Hope? Well, Solo sort of feels like it exists because some studio executive probably pitched in a meeting, hey guys, remember that throwaway line we had in A New Hope about the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs? That might make for a good movie. Let's make that. So yeah, this film is enjoyable enough, but it doesn't do anything to build upon or expand on this legendary character. To conclude, guys, Solo, a Star Wars movie, could have been an absolute travesty, but Ron Howard has actually done a pretty decent job of making a cohesive film. It does have some difficulty trying to find its voice. It's not always quite clear what tone it's striving for. Is it supposed to be humorous? If it is, I didn't laugh as much as I thought I would. But for a heist film, it did feel like there was a lack of fun in its execution. The colour palette and the character dialogue was often too muted and bland for something that should have been very exhilarating. Some of the cast inclusions were wonderful, such as Lando and L3, but others didn't have as much impact as I was expecting, such as Beckett, who was played by Woody Harrelson, or Val, played by Tandy Newton. The cinematography, the pacing, and some of its characterizations were all, you know, elements that I thought I had issues with. But at the end of the day, I wasn't bored, I just felt a little bit indifferent whilst I was watching. Right, let's ask those 3 questions. Would I watch this again? Well, maybe if I was hungover on a Sunday afternoon, and, you know, I was just flicking through the channels and it was on, then maybe, but I definitely didn't feel the urge to go out and watch this again like I did with The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi. Would I recommend that you guys go watch this? Well, it's certainly a movie that's not going to change your life, but at the same time, you won't feel like you're robbed of your money for having paid to see this, so it's kind of a yes and a no. And what score do I give it out of 10? Well, it is passable, but ultimately lackluster, so I'm going to give Solo, a Star Wars Story, a 5 out of 10. And my quick question for you guys today is, what did you think of Solo, a Star Wars Story? Do you think it was good? Do you think it was bad? What do you think of Alden Ehrenreich's interpretation of Solo? Whatever you think, be sure to let me know in the comments section below. And if you do like the content, guys, don't forget to click that subscribe button, alright? Thanks so much for watching, guys. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Airfield, and I'll see you next time.